Damn, welcome back, Uno Night, and we are back on the iPad to actually discuss the recent buffs with Mica and Seeha. So, if you aren't familiar, the actual buffs that they've received recently were only on their artifacts, which I'm very happy with because if you're not familiar, the enemies don't actually wear artifacts. Let me just whip it out very quickly here. Stage 17. Oh, perfect, we have a Mica and Seeha here. If you look at mine, let me just put Mica over there. You can see that there's an artifact icon on top of her. And we know that the enemies don't have artifacts because, well, there's nothing on top of their head. They literally fight us without artifacts. So, can't wait for content with enemies wearing artifacts, man. Super exciting. I don't know if they'll ever do it. But anyways, straight into the actual thing. So what was actually changed with Mica and Seeha? So I did mention that they did change their artifacts. So when it comes to scaling, basically when they are at higher ascensions for the artifact, the only thing that changes is that an increase in mana recovery that they do get only by 200 per ascension level, which isn't really that good, but then at the same time it's good because that means you don't need it heavily invested, because this artifact at level 1 is pretty much all of the value you need to get, pretty much, because Mica does get an attack buff 25%, 15 seconds, which is really good because this lasts longer than the actual cute live performance. Oh my god, what are these names, bro? And well, if you see here, the only thing that changes over time is a restoration for mana, which, I mean, it's good, but you don't really need it, man, you know. But anyways, the point is, she is very good in the early game, both Mica and Seeha, because right off the bat you have very high multipliers on her ultimate with 420% at level 2, which is very attainable in early stages, probably till stage 10. She's very useful. Then 450%, which even I don't have it yet, and she's not really that useful anymore, sadly. The thing about her passive is that as long as Seeha is on the battlefield, she does get 20% buffs to her resistances and her attack, which is good because, man, her attack is so low. It's really sad. Even after you apply the artifacts, 50k. For context, Ayame again has 73,000 after artifact, which it's not really looking good for Mica, is it? For context, Seeha literally has more attack, right? So we'll get straight into it. So how do these buffs actually change them? First of all, we'll actually talk about the content where Mica and Seeha are useful. Again, very strong early game nuker, one of the best, just because you have a lot of multipliers right off the bat. Where she's actually useful would be Beast Gate, which sadly we don't have up right now. And actually, if you are going to do Beast Gate, then you do have different combinations, some even without Mica and Seeha. So without Mica and Seeha, since they're pretty much tied together, right, which is an issue, you could have Aira, Clara, Haru, Honglan, and Suni. And if you're going with the Mica and Seeha team, you probably want to go with these 5 units, with Haru being, well, you could probably swap out with Clara, just in case you're not sustaining enough, because Clara and Suni do work hand in hand, because Clara does do heal over time. Seeha as well, by the way. And Suni does increase the heal over time effect of all allies by 40%, right? So that's a good thing. At least Beast does work with heal over time, which, that's why Suni's there. I don't really like doing gates. They're pretty boring to me, I'll be honest with you. It's pretty tedious. And in Battlefront, you don't really get to use them that often, right? So basically, here's the thing with their kits. We'll actually talk about their sub-skill rotation very quickly. I won't put it up anymore because it probably does not matter. The thing is, Mica and Seeha have the exact same sub-skill rotations, where they start off with their S1. Again, they have the same sub-skill rotation just so that everything is in sync with them, right? Let me just whip out her artifact. There we go. S1 stroke. Now, this does give an attack decrease of 20%. Problem is, it's not that good because this only lasts for the same turn, right? Because it's 4 seconds. So when would this actually be useful? Now, I'm looking at all the sub-skill rotations of all the units right now, and the only ones that are useful, well, this won't really help with anyone unless Mica actually attacks Villana right away, which even then, it's not that good because everything else, all these other units, don't really start off with a sub-skill. So this won't really nerf anyone except for Villana, and even, with that, it's not really useful because Villana does start off with S1. There are other units that start off with their sub skill, but then they usually play at the back. And let's be honest, beast units do not go for the back line, right? So she starts off with S1 again, right? Into N2. Sorry, let me rephrase that. S1, N1, S2, N2, S1, N2, S2, and ends it off with N2. So she actually has Mica and Seeha have the longest rotations in the entire game. Because here's the thing, much like Erika's S3, which is Eureka, Cute Life Performance actually lasts 2 entire turns. Now the reason why this is bad is because she isn't really doing anything during the duration of this, so she's not using any auto attacks or anything, so she's not really benefiting too much from the attack buff. But I guess the good thing is that the multiplier is pretty high, but then it averages like 170% over 2 turns, right? Oh, sorry, per turn. The only good thing about this is that she does get tankier while she's using this, and she does tend to spam this a lot. Now she does get extra 20% just from Seeha being on the field, which is really good because again she has very low attacks. So this is with her max artifact, and then with her keepsake this is another 25% of 40%. So boom, now we have 60k attack. And with Seeha on the field, this goes all the way up to roughly 68k, 69k attack, right? Same thing with Seeha, because the good thing about this is that they will pretty much go side by side during a match. So her attack, apart from having this, you also add 25% of this from Mica and an extra attack buff from their copy paste passives, right? So the good thing about this is that if you know the kit of one, you know the kit of the other one, right? So we already have a guide from before, so we'll just talk about how the buffs actually have changed them. Now sadly, they don't really perform that well in later stages, just because here's the thing, when we think about other units, Villana, if you look at Villana's kit, they are very similar in the fact that they do AoE around them, and then they do a lot of damage with their full screen ult. But again, we've mentioned this, Villana has the strongest full screen ultimate in the game when it comes to raw damage. And look, they both swirl and do damage around them. But then again, Villana's multipliers are higher, and she's just a quicker unit in general. And she even gets the resistances increase, right? Also, higher base attack, right? So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, there are other bear units, and the problem is Beast. Now, here's the problem with Beast. 2 of many of the problems of Beast, right? So, we were saved recently by Honglan. Shout out Honglan for saving Beasts just a bit. Problem is, Suni is not that good of a tank. Now, I say she's not that good of a tank is that because her resistances are not very consistent, if that makes sense. The uptime is not very high because of her sub-skill rotation. Now, you could say, oh, what about Claire? The thing is, Claire spams this a lot, her Protection of Faith, where it increases her resistances. Even though it's only 6 seconds, she uses it so often that it's pretty much always up. But Suni doesn't, right? And then the only good source of taunt she has is locked to her main, which is like really bad in general. Apart from that, she doesn't really have any good tanking skills, so that is the main issue with Suni. And the other one, again, as we mentioned, is that Beast wants to kill the front line as quick as possible, which isn't currently a good thing to have. It might become a good thing in the future, but the problem is that you really want to nuke the backline, because the backline is where the units such as the healers and the DPS units are, so you want to kill them off first before the tank. Now, the good thing is they can burst the tank quickly because we do have Mica, Aira, and Haru, with Aira reducing resistances, Haru giving attack buff and really good at killing single target units and all of that, right? So now we'll talk about the problem with her kit again. Again, S1 doesn't really do that much damage, and the attack reduction, 8 seconds, it's only like the first 2 turns and only to the front line, where this is only useful in like straight up melee fights, right? So you have a melee team versus a melee team, that's when it will become somewhat useful. Now, the other problem with this is that the resistance, her S2, again, the weird thing about this is that if the first tick of this acute live performance crits, then the rest of them will crit. But then if the first tick doesn't crit, then you're gonna be hitting like a wet noodle for 2 turns, right? Yeah. But then again, the good thing about this is that the resistance, and Another thing is that the first tick of this doesn't actually receive the attack buff from her artifact, because again, her artifact procs from this S2, which she doesn't really use until, I think, yeah, turn 3, which that is one of the good things, is that she uses this very quickly. So that's one thing. And again, her ultimate is just really good at nuking enemies in general, especially if you have all of the attack buffs up, right? Now, again, one of the problems with her is that her crit rate is very low, only 20%, but crit damage is okay, right? So she would benefit more from a crit rate keepsake set, or, you know, if you want to play with RNG, go for a full crit damage build, right? Or you can even have other units such as Mephi boosting it, but then at the same time, like, why not just use Mephi to nuke the enemy, right? If they're already analyzed. So that's one thing. Now, with all of that, let's actually talk about her pros, right? Again, they work so hand in hand together that it's really good. Having them both alive at the same time is really good. But again, if one of them dies, then their entire kit is locked out. Anyways, good thing is that she doesn't need high investment, meaning she's very good in the early game because her artifact, right off the bat, Benga, you already get the attack buff, right? And then the important bit, which is the shield and attack boost, are at level 1 because, again, Seeha now gets a shield, but only for the units around her that are hit with Happy Life Performance, meaning they are very good in melee DPS team composition. So that's really good because they can carry their own weight because they are somewhat tanky with their resistances, right? Now, they work hand in hand since Mica boosts her own attack, right, and the units around her. And again, since they are both melee, they would be very near each other, and 90% of the time they'd be beside each other, right? The reason this is good is that Seeha's shield, which is the buff that she did receive. Where is she? Oh god, my Seeha is naked. Oh wait. There we go. Because 200% of attack, right? This thing actually scales up for attack. So while cute life performance is up, then you do get an attack buff. So lovely, right? Now her heals do scale up for attack, and her attack is pretty decently high. Problem is, she has no full screen heals, no cleanses, nothing. But she does get, you know, target a defense buff to the units around her. So your front line will actually be pretty healthy with Seeha. Problem is, yeah, she cannot heal the entire team by herself. So with -2 units already, just because you have Mica and Seeha there, you're going to have a lot of issues. So what I want them to do, actually, if they want Mica to be playable, is to make this a cone in front of her, just so that Beast can have a more consistent way of hitting the backline. Because Honglan would not be enough to kill the backline, right? Because she is AoE, so she spreads out the damage so evenly, if that makes sense. Otherwise she'd be broken if she just does 1000% of attack to all units. And her main is also a very small AoE, right? So I want these things to, like, at least one of them to, like, hit the backline, because we're losing 2 units, right? So yes, they're very good in early game, and they are gods at, what do you call this, Dimensional Labyrinth. So keep that in mind, right? So very good units, but you won't be able to use them everywhere. But when they are useful, they do their job really well. So yeah, just keep that in mind. They have lots of flaws, but then also pros, as long as you have them beside each other, right? So if that video was useful to you, then please do consider subscribing and join the Discord, because we hop on calls pretty often just chatting about Eversoul, man. So it's been Uno Night, and I'll see you in the next one.